Hello everyone and welcome. In this video I'll be sharing my thoughts on the latest episode of The Walking Dead, Scars. As always, I won't be holding back on any spoilers, so please do bear that in mind. Anyway, without further ado, let's begin. It's kind of funny that this episode is called Scars because by the time it finished I ended up with scars down both my wrists due to me self-harming because of how bad it was. Okay, that's really not fair and that is a bit harsh. I can't say the episode was that bad, it was okay, but it just didn't really do it for me. I mean, it does contain some ideas which I really liked. However, it's not an episode that is going to stick in my memory for long after this season ends. Those hoping for further progression of the Whisper story arc will be sorely disappointed as Beta and Alpha are nowhere to be seen. Instead, the focus shifts to Michonne and Daryl with the story of how they got those weird X-shaped scars which was teased before the beginning of this season being centre stage. Whilst the concept of an episode focusing on this mystery is an intriguing proposition, the execution of it does leave a lot to be desired, with the big reveal being that Michonne and Daryl were branded by some bunch of random brainwashed kids being a major letdown for me personally. The scenes set in the past take place before the 6-year time jump, with Michonne being heavily pregnant with RJ still hunting for Rick near the fallen bridge. When she returns to Alexandria, a group of kids are waiting at the gates along with an old friend of hers, Jocelyn. Michonne helps her old pal to settle into Alexandria and also helps to rescue some of her children that were left behind. Now, although at this stage I can't say I knew exactly what was going to happen, I did make an educated guess that Jocelyn and all the children were going to die because, well, they are nowhere to be seen in the present. Granted, I didn't expect Jocelyn to turn out to be an evil maniac, but I would hazard a guess that most people knew that she wasn't going to make it out of this episode alive. So yeah, it turns out that Jocelyn is some kind of weird child napper who brainwashes kids in order to get them to brand people and kill people because, well, I don't really know why, to be honest. It didn't really make a whole lot of sense to me. Maybe there are some clues hidden throughout this episode which do allude to Jocelyn's real nature, which I might spot on another viewing, but to me her shift to crazy child snatcher just came out of nowhere. I'm guessing that Jocelyn lost her own kids at some point, which is why she has an obsession with making sure other kids aren't weak. Who really knows? To be honest, The Walking Dead doesn't give us a lot of information to go on with this woman, and what it does give us doesn't really make her a compelling villain to watch. I don't know what her endgame was or if she even had one, and hearing her talk about weakness and the need to eliminate it just made her seem like a cheap knockoff Alpha. And maybe that was the point, maybe it was supposed to make me think of Alpha. I mean, there are a lot of parallels between what happened in the flashbacks to what is happening in the now featured throughout this episode. But Jocelyn just didn't do it for me. In fact, she can jostle in the bin. What the hell, did I really write that? That is embarrassing. Right, I'm just going to go delete my channel now. Sorry guys. I don't know what I really expected as to the reason behind the cause of Michonne and Daryl's scars, but I thought it would be something better than them being burnt by some random kids. I will say though that the show does deserve some credit for having kids as antagonists, and even more so for letting Michonne chop them all to pieces, even if the camera does shy away from showing her actually cutting them all up. It's important to point out that Michonne doesn't immediately just stop hacking up children left, right and centre. She does try to reason with them first, before deciding that enough is enough when one of the little shits slashes her pregnant belly with a knife. Now of course I get why Michonne didn't want to kill children if she didn't have to, which is why she initially tried to reason with them, but if I were in her position, I have to say I would have just gone for the kill straight away. I certainly wouldn't have risked endangering my unborn child by trying to talk down someone who was coming at me with a knife, even if they were a child, and I feel that Michonne was really quite lucky that AJ managed to escape this situation unscathed. Aside from filling us in on the details regarding how Michonne and Daryl got those X-shaped scars, I think the real purpose of this episode is to present the viewers with a reason as to why Michonne is currently so reluctant to let people in at Alexandria, as well as portraying the lengths she will go to in order to protect Judith. In regards to Michonne's reluctance to accept strangers into Alexandria, I don't really think an explanation was necessary. We've seen Michonne be wary of helping others many times this season, with this episode once again being no different. This has caused some friction to form between her and Judith, with Judith deciding to leave Alexandria to help her friends, as she puts it. Over the course of this episode, we witness how Michonne dealt with losing Judith on 2 occasions. When she was taken by Jocelyn before the time skip, and with her leaving on her own accord in the present. The reveal that Michonne's old pal was actually a complete psycho obviously goes to illustrate the dangers of taking in people as well as the dangers of trusting the wrong people. Michonne's unborn child was so precariously close to being pierced by a blade, and Judith was nearly stabbed herself, and this incident proved to be a wake-up call for her, causing her to no longer open the gates of Alexandria to anyone. And this is all fine I guess, but just think about this for a moment. We are in the 9th season of The Walking Dead. Dead. We all know about stranger danger in this post-apocalyptic world. Did we really need a 20-minute flashback to remind us all that there are some people out there who like to pretend they're nice but actually they aren't? I really don't think that we did. I mean, Rick changed his stance on recruiting people nearly every bloody season. In season 3, he didn't want to let the prisoners stay with them and was pretty much set against anyone joining his group. In season 4, Rick takes on the Woodbury refugees and is more open to the idea of helping others, even going out of his way to try and help a weird Irish lady for some reason. I always try not to criticise The Walking Dead too much for replicating moments that is covered before, because the show and the comics have been going on for so long now that it's kind of unavoidable that this will happen. However, the notion of whether it's right or not to help people and trust people and let them in is something that's been covered more or less since the show began, and quite frankly I'm getting sick of it being brought up over and over again. As I mentioned previously, the other reason I believe that these Michonne flashbacks exist is to illustrate the lengths that she will go to protect Judith. Michonne killed one of her best friends, got her stomach sliced and murdered a bunch of kids to rescue a girl who isn't biologically hers, and I do admire that. In fact, I thought it was pretty incredible seeing her fight for her child with a baby ready to pop from her belly, and I'm sure a lot of viewers will enjoy what is a kick-ass female doing her business whilst carrying a baby and not letting that stop her. Moving on now to what happened in the present, which I enjoyed a lot more than all the flashback scenes, even if I still don't really understand what Judith was thinking when she ran away. I like the Judith that we've been given this season, but I haven't got a clue what she was trying to accomplish in leaving Alexandria. She says that she has to go to help her friends, but who is she talking about exactly? Daryl and Henry are fine, Ezekiel and Carol are at the hilltop. What is her goal here? What is she doing? Does she think that she can just take on every single walker single-handedly? I don't really know. Perhaps she just wasn't thinking at all. Maybe she was just upset, which is why she ran away. However, it seems a bit out of character, because from what we've seen so far of Judith this season, she's been portrayed as this switched-on and clever kid. This, however, wasn't clever and reminded me of when Cole used to get on my nerves when he kept running away and doing stupid shit in the first couple of seasons of the show. Anyway, let's try and find something positive to talk about, and no, I don't mean Scott Gimple's STI results.
Oh my god, I did not know you could get this many sexually transmitted diseases at once. I hope my wife doesn't find out about this.
So from my point of view, the Negan and Michonne conversation is probably the best part of this episode. Michonne storms into Negan's cell and asks him what he talks to Judith about, at which point Negan just says stuff like homework and how she misses Uncle Daryl, which isn't the answer Michonne is looking for. When Negan then says that he tells her about how badass her brother Cole was or how her dad slashed his throat, this sends Michonne through the roof even more, as she thinks Negan must have some kind of ulterior motive in being so nice to Judith. It's alluded to previously when Daryl sits down with Judith, which I should point out is another good little scene that I really liked, that Judith doesn't quite know the whole truth about what happened with the Saviors and the true extent of some of the horrific things that Negan has done. Michonne also references this as well and mentions that she wants to protect Judith and allow her to be a kid for as long as she can. Thinking that she can get one over Negan, she asks him if he has told Judith what he did to Abe and Glenn, expecting him to say no, therefore meaning that his and Judith's entire relationship is based on a lie, as he hasn't told her about his past. However, Negan tells Michonne that he has told her and that he is always honest with her, which is why Judith feels that she can talk to him instead of Michonne. Now, we all know that Negan is a bit of a shit stirrer and likes to play games, but as weird as it may seem, he does have a special bond with Judith, and I thought that he was being sincere throughout the entire conversation with Michonne, and it actually made him pretty likeable. I can understand why what Negan said to Michonne would be a nasty thing for any mother to hear, but in the end Negan actually helps Michonne because she comes to the realisation that she has to be more open with Judith in order to be there for her in a way that she needs. We see in the flashback that although Judith doesn't witness her mum slicing and dicing all the kids, she does walk out to see her mum covered in blood standing beside a dozen children's corpses. After a brief moment of hesitation, Judith runs back into Michonne's arms and they head back to Alexandria to resume their lives as normal, with Michonne thinking that little Judith has forgotten all about it. It turns out though, as revealed at the end of the episode, Judith remembers the whole damn thing, meaning Michonne's attempts to protect her from the horror of the real world have been a bit pointless because Judith has pretty much seen it all already. This is why she is mature enough to hear from Negan about what he did to Abe and Glenn without going crying to her mummy. The truly heartwarming moment, however, comes when Judith tells Michonne that she remembered her coming to her rescue but hasn't mentioned it because she thought it would upset her, with Michonne also not talking about it because she thought she was protecting Judith by doing so. This really struck a chord with me because this is exactly the kind of thing that real families and real couples do when trying to look out for one another. We often try our best to protect the ones we care about, but due to lack of communication, we usually just end up making things worse. So although I didn't really care for the whole flashback narrative, I did find the ending with Michonne and Judith breaking down barriers and connecting with one another to be quite touching. Anyway, a few other random things I need to mention before the end of this video. Firstly, during the flashback scenes when Michonne is looking for Judith, she comes across a dead body at Alexandria, and then she sees some bloody footprints on the floor and screams out, "No, no, no, Joyce, no." Now this confused me because how does she know at that moment in time it was Joyce's footprints or that Joyce had anything to do with it? I've tried watching this scene back a couple of times, but I still can't really work it out, so if you know what it was about, then please tell me. Secondly, why on earth did Michonne think it would be a good idea for her and Daryl to split up at the crazy kid's hideout? And finally, I'm sure you'll be glad to know that the legend that is Scott has returned. But there's a catch, he's only seen alive in the past. So if Scott is dead in the present, then I'm done. I'm done. Everyone, we need to boycott The Walking Dead if Scott is dead. If Scott dies, we riot. So yeah, that's about it really. I'm sure a lot of people will disagree with me on this episode as it seems to have gotten very good reviews from what I've seen online so far. And if you liked it then, I'm glad you did. I'm happy Michonne was pretty much the focus of an entire episode because she's a good character who hasn't had enough to do over the last few seasons. However, I just didn't really care for the flashback story at all. I just felt like it completely stopped all the momentum that has been building up nicely with the Whisper story arc of late. And this seems to me like the kind of episode that you can just skip over and not really miss out on anything too significant. There were some scenes in Scars which I really enjoyed, which I've already mentioned, but sadly there just weren't enough of them for me to make this episode feel warranted. So there you go, please let me know your thoughts below. Did you like this episode? Did you hate it? Or did you just think it was a meh, like bit like me really? Whatever your opinions, let me know in the comments below. And yeah, that's about it really. Thank you for your patience with me getting this episode out. And I will see you all soon. So thank you. Goodbye.